It's already been an electric start to the weekend, and it's only going to continue getting better from here. Hello, everyone. My name is Sam Tonks. Joining me is Obi, and welcome back to the 2025 CVAL Championship. And Obi, like I said, right, it's been a crazy start to the weekend. We're now on day 2, where things are just looking like it's going to get even more heated from now.
Yes, I mean, we've already had, those bottom 16 teams duke it out. And so we've already had a fair number of teams eliminated here. And while our top next round is not until next week, we get to jump down to the lowers to cover a few of those additional matchups for our Easter Sunday. And I definitely think we chose one of the bangers, but we should probably look at how we got here. I talked about uppers, I talked about lowers, I talked about seeding. So what break down that format for me, Sam.
For now, we're stepping into the lower bracket where, fortunately, like Zobi said, losing out on 16 teams, but it's still going to be another 16 for this lower round 2 that are going to be duking it out. Just as we continue to go on and on and on, the less amount of teams that we have to go through, the less pressure that you're dealing with, especially as you continue through the upper rounds. But, this format, Zobi, and the way that it's been set up, especially for this year, is just lending itself so well to the action-packed weekend and the action-packed series that we've been looking forward to.
I mean, for sure. And the matchup that we're actually going to be jumping into is MBU Spartans versus NC State Red. And it's interesting because that's like your North number 3 versus your North number 4, right? So you mentioned it, right? This format allows such banger storylines. Like, we're getting a head-to-head in the lowers for elimination between those two highly seeded teams. And I mean, we'll jump into their storylines a little bit later, but they're not just here fighting for honor, right? Fighting for the title. There is some prizing on the line, isn't there, Sam?
Some prizing, you say, Zobi. Some indeed. Big numbers when we look at our first place. 16,000 per team scholarship. Second place is going to be getting half that at 8,000. Third is going to grab that 6,000. And fourth at 5. So a lot of prize pools on the line. A lot of scholarship money. And this could be, right, if you get first place, that's a life-changing amount.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. We were kind of talking about this yesterday. A lot of these players are in different points in their collegiate journeys, whether that's a semester of tuition, whether that's, a security deposit on an apartment if you're a senior graduating, because I do know we have some seniors where this is their last hurrah trying to compete for that CVAL championship title. It definitely will go a long way, which again goes back to the sustainability of, participating in collegiate esports. But let's go back to our lineup for today, Sam. MBU Spartans versus NC State Red.
Some more flavors of how different regions are going to be going up against each other. When you think of MBU, right, especially with winning their bid into CVAL champs by getting number 3 in CVAL North, right? That is a highly competitive region. You got the likes of Maryville up there. You got the likes of Northwood out there. Then you look over at NC State, again, another highly competitive region where they were number 4 in CVAL South. And they've even managed to beat out teams like, well, guess what? The current reigning champions of Tamu Maroon.
Yeah, I think that's definitely what earned them their kind of like namesake right now. Like for Missouri Baptist, like we mentioned, their region itself is stacked, and you'll notice when we jump to the covering their roster, there's just stacked names there as well. But for NC State, it's kind of like, who are they? Where did they come from? But then you're like, oh, they beat Tamu. Well, maybe they do have, something going for them here. And this is what they are now currently trying to prove in the lower bracket, because they virtually were seeded to CVAL number 18, so they started off in the lowers, where they did beat KSU 2-0 in that first round. Sorry, my current alma mater for KSU getting eliminated there, but it was a 13-6, 13-11 2-0 victory. So they started off with a win, but right, coming from the uppers, MBU had kind of a stark loss against HU Storm, our number 7 seed in CVAL, our East number 2 seed coming in, and that was a 6-13 on both split and fracture. So it didn't feel like they put up a fight as much as some of our other upper bracket matches, like the one we covered that went multiple double digits a map 3. So I'm hoping like that yesterday is just you brush it off and you keep going, because it can be a slap to the face.
Yeah, well, we know that the Missouri Baptist is more than capable of making that happen. So is NC State. It's going to be a tough battle for both of our teams today, especially when we talk about what the map poll is going to be looking like. I don't think it's just really going to be out of the ordinary if you keep an eye on the way that these two teams plays and the maps that they like to go onto. It's going to be starting off on Split into a Sin, and if we need to, for our decider map of Lotus.
And I think for me, Split, Lotus, the ones that make the most sense for these two teams. They've been really strong in both of their wheelhouses. We kind of question again when you pick a map that's also good for your opponent, like Split starting out for NC State. But a sense that kind of question mark for MBU Spartans. In my eyes, this is a squad we were trying to look at it. They like to change things up here and there. Like, you never expect them to run the same composition. Or, also see some subs stepping in and out because they do have some, tier 2 players I need to go play in tier 2. And if Roger Rogers playing, that's a diamond player, number one. Number two, I won't steal your flame. When was the last time they played Ascent?
From what I was able to find, it was March 22nd, and they play a crazy composition, though. And it seems to be pretty consistent, right, for a team that loves to switch things up on the fly a lot. Zoe, this is crazy, right? They forego a duelist. They go double Sentinel, double Initiator, and a Brimstone for a Sin of all things.
Well, we'll see if that stood the test of time. I know, for example, Noted was on that stage more recently, and we kind of see them hence embrace this Clove repetitive no matter what map it is, minus a Viper maybe on Icebox, which we're not seeing today regardless. But I do think there is a chance here, like I mentioned, for MBU, our higher seed, to go for that 2-0. Or, NC State, if they get the ball rolling here, I think we could have a good 3-mapper on our hands. But it does have to start with Split, where both of these teams, they go pretty aggressive, right? We kind of noted that NC State Red, they have this double duelist composition they like to run on so many maps. I think the only map that I saw them really foregoing it was Fracture and Ascent, actually, that we might get to see later today. Or we will see later today in a best of 3. But for MBU, they also go aggressive, and again, we're kind of questioning, is Dusty going to be playing? Is Roger going to be playing? But it's in the form of that double Initiator, of a Teho, of a Breach, and then you bring in that Clove to kind of supplement, to where a second duelist could just be as aggressive, and that'll fall, hopefully, to Noted if we get to see them in that position again.
Yeah, talking about how Split with the double duelists and the way that you think about it, especially if they're starting off on the attack, which looks like
NC State is
going to be, NC State's going to be starting off on the attack. So just being able to survive through that. But the idea that sits in the back of your head, especially if you have something like a Jet on your squad, you're going to be able to make use of the operator. That brings a lot of value on Split, especially if you're posting up mid or if you're posting up A lot of different flavors that come from there. But the double duelist entry potential that you have with your Raze and your Jet, both working in tandem with each other to overwhelm and dash your way or satchel pack your way onto a site, really helps open things up for the rest of the squad to be able to do things with. And that's also to continue to talk about that aggression that we tend to see out of NC State. You're playing with that Sky, just that little bit of extra flavor, and the rest of the composition is looking more stock and standard. And then over on the other side for the Spartans and the way that they like to play Split, right? You have your Raze, but then you have Noted, like we've been talking about, on the Clove. And the Clove, again, adds just that interesting dynamic to the way that Split is played.
And again, we're working to confirm, like, if we do get these subs or not, because they did have subbers for both of these teams. Ironically, one is Roger, one is Ranger. For NC State, we're not going to have any issues mixing those two up if they are both in the lobby at all. But Ranger is this interesting player because they've subbed for, Ambueno, and they've subbed for Nuthium, so they can be flexible, and you expect them just to be that one-for-one substitution because they actually were the one playing that Sky. So if Nuthium comes in, are they still going to be playing the Sky on Split? That's my big question mark. And it looks like we just got our rosters in, and it looks like Nuthium is in fact in, and it looks like Dusty is back as well. So they're like, oh, it's just first round, we don't care. This is easy pickings, easing opponents. Yeah. Or if you're, MBU, get the lower bracket runs, so you have a second life. You're like, but now it's getting serious, elimination on the line. Let's get our full rosters in. And so now it's like, okay, Dusty, I'll say, this map, it was Roger playing a Cypher, playing a sub role. Like, Dusty likes the Killjoy. I don't think Split, we've seen a Killjoy in ages, so I still expect a Cypher, maybe even a Vice, but only time will tell.
Yeah, only time will tell. But yeah, being able to operate at peak efficiency for MBU is so vital. It's like we've been saying, you're in the lower bracket now, you are facing elimination, your backs are against the wall, every mistake is going to be amplified to its most maximum, and you don't want to let anything fall off to the wayside. You want to be bringing in the best that you possibly can. And you also don't want to be disrespectful of your opponents. You don't want to just think that you can take it easy because you're going up against the 19th seed. If anything, it taught us yesterday is that, right, the underdogs still have some bark, still have some bite with their bark. We saw that in our matchup yesterday with WVU versus CSP. It was a 3-map gigabanger of a series that went all of the way, multiple rounds. I mean, map number 1 was quadruple overtime, for goodness sake. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we're going to be seeing something similar here today against both of our teams, unless Missouri Baptists are able to close things out relatively quickly on these 2 maps.
Yeah, it will definitely be like split will be a good teller, I think, because that's the thing for me. And I mean, Missouri Baptist, they put up a great fight, but what they screamed to me is like they have really skilled players and they just came together like to play in collegiate for the sake of playing in collegiate. And I think that also shows with how often they have subs, how often they are changing up the rosters. It is kind of a vibe of like, how do we feel coming into the server today? What do we want to run? Like, I don't know how much preparation they have coming into CVAL versus NC State Red. Again, it's unknown names, so they have to have that coordination coming in, and they are going to be surprising us because we've only really gotten to see them in CVAL South. So excited to see what else we get to do. But outside of that, let's talk about that later pool of Ascent and Lotus. We talked about the weary composition we might see out of MBU. If we make it to Lotus, though, that's another really interesting one because we get to see another variation of the double duelist out of NC State Red, of a Neon, of an ISO, which I feel like is less approached. You know, we're always like, it's weird when you don't have a Raze on a Lotus, and that'll go up a little bit more of the stock standard newer composition style from MBU, you know, that Tejo, that Raze, a Vice, and Omen. And I'm curious to see, again, how, you know, favoring your team, what you're comfortable with versus the meta is going to do.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see Neon making her return back into the agent pool for a lot of these collegiate teams. I mean, heck, we saw it yesterday and how well it can work in the hands of a crazy player like Zek and VCTs, right? So it's an agent that still is finding her niche, still finding her way throughout the nerf changes that happened to her a couple months ago. But when players are able to put on a performance like what NC State did yesterday against KSU, I mean, it was a 13-6 Lotus map, and you're playing with an ISO of all things. You don't even have that added pressure of a Raze. So you're really relying on the skill of your duelist to be able to frag out. First of all, that's what you want from your ISO. That's like their whole kit. Their whole kit is, can you frag out? If you can, then you're going to be crazy with it. If you can't, then you're just going to be falling off to the wayside. And I mean, even just taking a cursory look at the stats yesterday, I mean, yeah, you're doing your job, you're getting things done, and you're getting the picks and the kills that you need. And when you have Fast being able to support you, being that extra like sort of mosquito nuisance on Lotus, it just makes a overwhelming odds against the enemy team.
Well, we talked about where we could be going in this series, but it all starts on Split. And I know our players are ready, and so is our agent select. So let's go see if our notes, in fact, reflect the test, or if we'll get some spicy switch-ups from this squad. And here they go, starting to fill things in. And we already got our promised Clove here from Noted, which is great to see. And we are getting that new theme Sky that we mentioned. We're like, I'm not sure if it's going to be the same, you know, the one-for-one substitution for Ranger who's subbed in here, but it is this double duel, kind of classic old style Split versus this new aggressive. We're expecting, you know, a Tejo. We're expecting, you know, a Cypher to round out the Missouri Baptist composition.
And Tejo's been filling in that interesting niche for the way that Split is played, right? A lot of long sight lines, a lot of really great corridors that their Armageddon is so useful for being able to play for the post plan. And that's kind of what also this composition is really built towards, is hanging on to the post plan, delay tactics, hold on for as long as possible. We got a lot of flavors of that yesterday, especially on our Fracture map, where it was just ultimate util everything. But Missouri Baptist, I'm kind of liking what we're seeing right here.
Wow.
We got the Yoru and the Raze. We got two teams running both the double duelists.
And this is spicy. This feels like, again, like maybe understanding your opponent. Again, maybe the mentality I mentioned of Missouri Baptist. They do what they're feeling coming into the server day of. We were expecting the Tejo, but the Yoru, you know, maybe he's going to take a little bit of that dependence off Katashio. And that's another thing, is Katashio, like, sometimes is on that duelist, but they're like the ultimate flex for this team. They've played the Priest, they've played the Vice, and you might even see them on those roles later later in this series. So I think it is smart to supplement Cavern on that role as well. But it's definitely interesting, again, to see, because I feel like every player has had the duelist reigns at some point in this collegiate semester. I've seen Bear on Raised on Fracture. We've seen Katashi on Raised, like I said, on Split, like we were just seeing now. We've seen, even Noted on Raised on Lotus. Maybe we'll see that later today. So it, again, just depends. This team is such a conundrum, a question mark, but we know for one thing is that they bring the mechanics, they bring the aim, and they bring that higher seed potential against a team, NC State Red, who is trying to make that name for themselves. They started with a great win over the reigning champs, Tam and Maroon, in CVAL South, but this is the championship league where everyone is playing at their best.
Yeah, everyone's playing at their peak, and especially for MBU, having their whole squad, having the whole main roster here, no substitutes. NC State Red is going to be up against a behemoth of a team, one that's been forged through the fire and flames of some of the best that CVAL has to offer. It's not to say that NC State Red also hasn't been through their own trials and tribulations, but you can't let anything fall off to the wayside. You cannot be caught off guard. You got to be playing at your peak, and you got to be playing with the knowledge of what your team likes to pick and what they like to pick. But we're going to be going into game here right now. Map number 1 of Split is going to be starting things off. It is Missouri Baptist on the defense. NC State Red giving us a look at how the attack's going to start off.
Looks like a little fake Skeeter. So again, maybe that double duelist and how it's going to function, right? You see the initiator utility, you see the duelist, or here I should say the dash into ramps. But look at this. Missouri Baptist not really falling for it. You kind of saw the Clove pivot, do a little re-clear over towards Ven, see if they still heard the footsteps. But with that complete cut of noise, no one's falling for it, especially when the cam has already made contact. There's a great, fault line just to follow it up and ensure like, hey, we didn't fall for your antics. We're still here. And that's kind of caused NC State to pause.
You don't want to go too crazy, right? You don't want to fall into the Cypher utility or the Cypher traps. Smoke's going to go up inside of Mailbox, but they could be playing off a pop flash from their breach or just waiting for someone to go in through the smoke, but no noise being given at the players going through Vince. And this is going to be really sketchy for what's happening inside of Heaven and where things might be going, but once the smoke dissipates, it's unfortunately onto the sky. 20 damage. Nuthium can't heal themselves. May be able to get Bueno back up to full, but now the rest of the squad has weaseled their way back into A Heaven. Go over towards the other side. Cavern has to be ready for a fight of a lifetime. Double swing. Get over to the corner, and a brilliant fault line all the way from Mail. Going to help bring them and secure them the first blood against Freak.
As well, the pivot there from Katashio, perfectly timed. I was curious to see how that Raptors player was going to function. But look at this, numbers advantage. Someone has to step up and be that hero. They leave Nuthium tucked away in Mail, maybe to hope that the corner wasn't cleared, but it doesn't work out. 10 seconds, Bueno tucks in CT to try and isolate some kills. But unfortunately, the player on site heard the drop down. You track the player, you take care of them in CT. And just like that, Missouri Baptist able to get the first round on the board following that pistol.
Yeah, and you look at the way that NC State was trying to work their way across the map, starting off with 2 on A, 3 towards B, before eventually reconvening back in mid to try and end back on A. It was just that early initial fight and the utility usage from Missouri Baptist, that just sent NC State into a spiral and they could not recover from.
Well, this time, you don't have the weapons, might as well take the numbers advantage onto a quick A execute. And it feels like minus Cavern, who's peeking out with that sniper rifle, they were basically granting them the sight. But now Katashio, guarding a bigger weapon in hand, waiting here. Players in Heaven able to take out the solo Brits as well, tucked away on ramps. And it's going to be this 4-on-4 retake with the better weaponry.
All right, rushing their way back over towards the site. Just making sure that Heaven's protected, but they got the outlaw in hand. Abuse that weapon as best you can for as long as you possibly can. Now it's just down to the final player for MBU and NC State Red. It was just one decision, Zobi. It was just press W, overwhelm the defenders.
Sometimes simplicity is key, especially on those eco rounds. They deathball into A, they get control of the site. I think Cavern was smart. It's not the best weapon you're going to hand over taking that initial engagement, but then the rest of it felt a little bit fragmented there of the players making their way onto site. There was no joint utility, and looking at the composition they're running again, you mentioned it last round, they do need that breach to kind of set up a lot of these players, like the Rays satcheling in, like the Clove taking a swing, and just none of that was there. They trusted in the better weaponry, and unfortunately some clean shots from NCSU proved it bit faulty. So now look at this, Noted forcing up the Bulldog, and with the squad rolling up here mid for NCSU, they might get their opportunity to put it to good use.
Scout destroyed.
Oh, and you even see the Rays inside of Vince. Gonna force them back for a second, but NCSU not playing with fate beyond that smoke. Not really knowing what could be happening on the other side of it. That's kind of the issue when you just leave the dog to go by itself and no one following up on that approach, right? Oh my word. Katashio! It's quick as lightning on that headshot. Freak is gone. Thankfully, Generic has the trade in through B main. And not only that, but you've gotten rid of the Cypher. So any possibility of utility that was there has been taken out.
All right. And it does look like with that first blood, that trade though from Nuthium onto Katashio, it's gonna keep things even footing here. Brits trying to be that sentinel mentality of, okay, make an opening for your team on these solo lurks, but unfortunately we might just be going thrifty for thrifty. Noted kind of going out on a limb here ahead of the squad's gonna give the 1v1 to Nuthium, give them an opportunity here because Polkin doesn't have an upgraded weapon in hand. Now none of the players really do. Cavern, I think, was able to get one off of Brits here, but this yeah, Polkin just play her life, wait for Cavern, play the 1v2.
Yeah, and they're going to be able to pick up the weapon too, so now both of them, going in with the rifles. Nuthium playing for this aggressive peek against Cavern, but that is not going to work. Cavern going to be able to take down the final remaining blocker here, bring MBU to a thrifty round of their own.
I mean, it was a smart play from Nuthium. You know, you got your isolated 1v1s multiple times in that round, but again, HP loss builds up and Cavern just wins their fight outright. So really, I mean, give MBU a great counter round, right? We talk about how, like, when you lose a second round thrifty, it takes a while for your economy to get repaired, but now it's NC State, right? Kind of in that similar position. So a great answer back here. We're gonna again get a kind of a half-buy situation from NC State. We'll get to see, maybe it looks like another death ball style approach. Interestingly enough, though, it's the Omen kind of starting with the mid lurk instead of the Sentinel hanging out over towards that side of the map. So I'm curious how this is going to fare.
They're just going to deposit themselves for as long as possible. Skyflash is going to detect one player up towards Heaven, but Skatashio. They got away with so much inside of Vince, and they're looking to continue that streak even further. Cavern takes another swing of their own, while Freak is looking towards Ramps. That's going to cost them their life, right? These two duelists playing so well with each other, the coordination being as in sync as they are, bring them back up to full health, but now you're just still trying to have to fight through Katashio, who going to take a higher ground position, see their leg, and it's so quick, so decisive, but more importantly, so deadly. The rest of the group reconvening with each other. And this Omen that's been deposited on the lurk, I mean, look at it, Zobi, they're still just there. And there's nothing that Nuthium could do to stop the aftershock or survive the storm called Katashio.
I mean, that was just a beautiful reclear of A main after, you know, Spike gets dropped. And now, I mean, at this point, I mentioned I was questioning the solo lurk from Bueno, and now they are alone here. I mean, you know, there was 3 to 4 players that just cleared A main, so if you're looking for just kills or looking to save, I think they're in a great spot here. You know, challenge the solo Cypher or tuck away here safely. You know, they're not going to stray too far from the Spike, except for maybe 1-2 players like Cavern, who are going to search for that kill. I'm surprised it's Cavern searching and not a player that could use the ult orb like Dusty or like Noted in this situation, but they can rob the weapon away. It's a win nonetheless, but time is not on their side at the moment.
No, it's not. Yeah, but Bueno just gets to chill out for a little longer. They might cross paths with Cavern. It doesn't look like that's going to be the one to come to fruition just yet. Ooh, hold on to the weapon, see what could be going on. Yep, nope, all right, Bueno. Let's chill out for another round, but for Missouri Baptist University, you're starting to put up the numbers. You got 2 in a row. Let's see how long the streak can keep going, but now NC State Red going to be popping off with the first full rifle round that we get.
A side of the map, and Katashio definitely popping off there in that moment, so we kind of put them in a hot seat, being like, how are they going to do on the duelist? You know, they get passed around a lot this Raze. Looks like, again, they get a challenge, and this time, Freak finds the better of it.
Don't let this Raze keep getting away with it. Not over and over. They have so much. Look at how fast the rotation is from MBU. And then they're going to even throw in the Seekers on top of that. Freak putting on a performance that needed to be happening right now,
Here.
especially with the very valuable weapons in hand. You may have lost one duelist, but that's where the other one's going to slot themselves in and still be able to push onto site. Gonna manage to see where Cavern is, but gotta be so careful against this Yoru who has been so decisive. And if Breeze can win this fight against Dusty, or at least get rid of them, they'll open up the pathway onto B.
I kind of like them waiting here, actually. Entire team overwhelms and...
yeah, Freak!
Yeah, Freak.
On track for the
4K.
ace! Oh, might actually be able to do it!
Wow. Impressive. I mean, from entering on A to rejoining with Briots to complete the B Heaven clear out, that was a nice job. And we talked about how questioning, okay, maybe the pre-round setup a few rounds back, but I feel like decisiveness from NCSU has been their best look so far. You know, the full-on commitment that we just saw. I mean, you mentioned it. I think the supportive utility from Nuthium here was the best, like, the shining moment as well, right? That Sky Flash onto Katashio, the Seekers that they followed up, even the Dog to clear out that there was an additional player deep A main, so that they did kind of pivot off of Brit's information over towards B Heaven. All of it looked really strong.
Looking really strong. Can NC State continue to hold on to that strength? Now they got an operator breathing down on them from Cavern, who's still holding that A side, right? So NC State has chosen the correct pathway to avoiding that, but have to go through all of the Cypher utility set up in front of them. Slow clearing out through Garage. A couple of players may be able to grab over towards that. Seen by the cam. Not bringing up the K's just yet. Dusty playing it smart, playing it safe. Playing off of any contact out through Heaven especially. They make their first swing. Freak! Turned around just in the nick of time to keep the head intact. He's going to go ahead and pop off with the Blade Storm. And a showstopper going in to Heaven, which is MBU back for a little further. But now the Dimensional Drift to answer back with another showstopper as well. That miss! That's going to bring themselves back up from the dead. And it's just going to be an ultimate party from both of our squads. Pull out a Dimensional Drift, a quick flashbang. Nope, back up from the dead, but bueno. That's the alert that we needed from them for a long time. And it's finally happening here.
30 seconds
I mean,
left.
does your Sky drop the spike and you get it to get an even earlier plant? Looks like the timing might just be similar anyway, so they're just gonna wait. Again, Nuthium should not be alive after that showstopper, right? They're lucky to cling on to their life with 3 HP. I love this trio, though, all sticking together, right? Or I guess it's a duo. I got even outplayed by the clone. Because you know one player's low HP. You know and that there was an off-position alert from Mbueno and don't know where they currently are any longer. And I mean, Cavern, if you win the fight over like that, this should still be an MBU round unless Nuthium gets some heroics with his 3 HP. But noted, we mentioned it came back from the grave and surely was not going to be put in the ground for a second time.
Think about that too, right? Noted had to ult, get the kill, keep themselves alive. And that did everything for the squad. Both teams heavily investing their ultimates though, Zobi, right? We got the Showstopper Blade Storm commitment from NC State. MBU using a Showstopper, using the Dimensional Drift, using the Clove ultimate, the Not Dead Yet. So there's a lot that needed to be expended to win that round, but they did. It's still tough, not tough tides yet for NC State. Their economy's still looking good enough to buy up here. But hopefully...
I think... like we mentioned, like, yeah, there was a lot of ults used by MBU, but, like, Noda's already halfway back to their ult.
Yeah.
They're about to get a neural theft for Dusty online as well, so it was a nice trade out here versus it's going to take, you know, the squad of NCSU some more time to recover. And you mentioned the economy might not grant them that long of a grace period to get that ult back online. But, again, Freak is the master of challenging ramps. Finds no one to kill this time on the Noted. Katashio falls back a little bit. They don't have eyes quite yet. And then positioned over towards Rams, but this operator from Cavern, we were mentioning Yoru's an option, how we didn't like it yesterday. It works in this player's hands.
It really does. They're gonna pop out a clone. This has to be so careful from Freak not to shoot it or give away their position. But when 2 duelist swings, 1 survives, and that one's gonna be Katashio. Another shot off with the operator, and Cavern is making this weapon sing a symphony. That symphony is death. Now Polkin, see,
and they know.
Here in Breeds, they know where this is. A 4K from Cavern. A great way to end the round.
It's always so funny when, like, you're like, oh, the operator, it's on the A side, staring down main, and then suddenly, like, it's a Yoru, right? So they're all of a sudden be Heaven, finishing off the last player, Briots, who I was kind of concerned, right? This is your double duelist, singular sentinel composition. But the way MBU's playing it, right? We talked about these fast-paced rotations. We look at this operator, And again, the communication to recognize where Brietz is going here, like, they're not losing control over these common avenues like mid. We mentioned, like, the one round that Bueno kind of got away with it, getting through spawn, but even then, they reeled it back in, won that round, so the impact wasn't catastrophic. Which I think maybe is why NCSU's I'm assuming is the one that took this time out here, because they're the ones down 5-2. Their death ball into A isn't working as much because it only hinges on Freak having to win that ramp stool. And we kind of mentioned as well, that was their last full buy, maybe minus the rogue weapon or two. So they have to like get the ball rolling now before MBU gets a dynamic lead.
I want to talk about this as well, right? Cavern used that dimensional drift in the previous round, and they're already only two ultimate points from having another dimensional drift in their pocket. We talked about Noted, how close they were. Poken's only 4 away from Rolling Thunder, so a lot on the line here for them to be able to make massive plays again with the ultimates, and that's kind of where NC State is also lacking in some areas of their own. Nuthium, really the only thing I think with the Seekers close enough to get them. Not gonna happen, but now look at where this operator is. All right, tries to take a pot shot through the smoke. No way you go back in through that. No, it's just to stall things out, slow them down, and give yourself some breathing room to reset back up with the operator.
Yeah, that was nice, like, soul read, I would say, from Cavern, right? Put the operator on your sentinel site. But they're not the only ones that made changes, right? Look at MBU. The Breach usually was your mid-pivot player, holding down vents. This time they're on A, playing a little bit more delay for any kind of A main shenanigans that they know in CSU has supported before. But this time it's just the Brietz lurk. It's again mid, kind of the focal point of the start out for NCSU Red. And, you know, a lot of pushback. Now the operator posted up on the line. This is difficult because they haven't even broken down any of this Cypher utility towards the B site. So they kind of give Missouri Baptist this comfortability, you know, posting up players across the map away from the Cypher.
Not liking the feelings that might be coming from here. You can see NC State really toying with the idea the utility is prepped. Now the execution is time to go in. The one trip is still up though. Getting rid of Dusty, it doesn't matter if the trip. Oh my god, Noted!
30 seconds left.
Unbelievable! But NC State not done yet with this round. Fights back in a massive way. And Northern's gonna figure out where this from the hip fire? This shouldn't be possible! This shouldn't have happened in that way!
What a quick scope from Cavern. I mean, I was like, wow, we might see out of their timeout around Friend CSU. Everything that, like, we kind of mentioned that MBU was keeping track of, well, started to slip away, right? I mean, Noted here, number one, insanity should not have happened. They finally challenged the Cypher, looked like they were going to win, you know, disrespect for the trap wire, satcheling over it. But that's crazy. Brietz on the lurk worked out, but again, heroics, clean shots, keep MBU on the right track. They get to that safety net of a 6th round, and we'll be looking for more here, where we're finally back to a full buy, minus that, oh yeah, full buy, and they're just going back to the death ball A.
Yikes. Right, but now we're seeing a lot more utility to try and stall them out. Throw it in with a fault line, throw it in with the paint shells, and surprisingly not going to walk away with too much damage. Bold maneuvers here from Cavern to walk out of the smoke from the operator, but not hearing anybody go out on the other side. Some alarm bells should be ringing for MBU. They gave up a little bit of B control, but the way that NC State is going across this map, it's a glacial pace that MBU is already spread out across and still retaining as much of this map as they possibly can.
I think the dog stunned Noted.
I think it did too, right? And Noted's going to try and fight that against Freak. That's kind of where you're running into some problems of your own, but Noted is going to bring themselves back up to life and look for fights yet again. They're looking all over in all the different directions. They saw Bueno, but didn't flick back in time to bring themselves back to life.
Trapwire Heaven gets destroyed. There's not a quick follow-up. So you mentioned this glacial NCSU pace, and sometimes it doesn't work out in their favor,
left.
right? Because in the meantime, look, operator posted up on vents. Katashio should have the lurk player for Brietz, but Cavern has to hit the shot, and they do. No gate crash, but it doesn't matter because they're going to post up and go back for seconds. We know they love to do this, and we know they hit those shots.
Good God!
Knife out!
How does Cavern keep getting away with these shots? It's like you said, now time, and there's no chance because Cavern's holding the spike with a 4K on that operator again.
Whew. I mean, the only hope you would have had there would be to use the, from the shadows, right, to cover the spike, but I think they just used it to regroup with their team on the ace side. Here, yeah, look, right there, it was used to clear out the ace site. So now you're alone on A, and when the entire team is rolling up to heaven to hold the spike, that Cavern just got possession over with insane operator shots. You know, they're just dry swinging this. They're not even having, you know, the support of the breach, the support of the players from their team, because they don't need it. They just hit those shots, and that's, again, going back to these, you know, tier 2 players with insane mechanics.
Yeah. NC State just does not have an answer to this operator. And already, guess who's back? A rare moment here that Polkin is going to fill in the slots for, make sure that that operator doesn't go too crazy. Cavern's got to make sure to put themselves on the kill feed. But the death ball this time has been unraveled. Missouri Baptist University, only 2 more rounds in this half, but an 8-2 so far. It's looking very good for them.
Yeah, they're getting warmed up here. 5 in a row. NC State University, again, that timeout felt like we need to figure out a different strategy aside from this A death ball. And now that B exec failed because of Nodic's heroics, they really have just gone back to hitting A perpetually. So I'm glad to see that this time they're just leaving, you know, Briat's with the A alert. They're going back to the B side because they did a good job breaking through the Cypher's defenses. And you can't, I'm gonna put a big asterisk on it, expect Noded to have that performance every single time, right? Right?
Right, yeah, right? Surely not.
Sure.
First, the strips are going to be broken, the paint shell is going to do its job, but again, it's just all about ult orb farming. Not really going to go too much more beyond that. Here it is, the secrets to figure out where the players are exactly. But the thing that's so scary is look who's here with the operator. That's kind of where that smoke being in the pivotal location, but there's a gap in it. There's a hole in it. There's a chance for him to go crazy with it.
Whoa.
Maybe the shorty misses. Generic and Freak have done their job. Open the side up wide and open for NC State to plant the spike. Now it comes down to a 2v4 for MBU to go up against, but a Rolling Thunder invested. It's only going to catch one player. It's going to have to be big, but Katashio looks behind them. Polkin has the retake against them, protects their duelist for the moment. Aftershock, try and clear out on the side, but aren't too many numbers. Katashio, 1v2. But you got to look towards heaven. You got to go for the reload. And Briat's make sure that NC State is not going to lose this round.
Yeah, they look like they were aware of the Briat's lurk, but just, again, timer, who knows, they still try to take the backside fight engagement off the reload, and nice cap off to the round. But NCSU, we talked about it, they had an okay job, you know, breaking through the beast site. And I mean, sometimes, you know, Cavern, you have to miss those shots, even if you are 16-3. And like I mentioned, Noted, can't always put up that style of performance, like a 3-piece from heaven. And I did like the coordination there between the remaining players. I mean, between Vulcan and Katashio, that was clean, but ultimately, I think it was just the coordination between Freak and, you know, Generic getting into that site like you mentioned, right? They satchel past the Cypher trips, and Freak, when they dash back site, they are having this kind of tag team-esque nature so that Noted can't get both.
Yeah, it's very important when you look at that dissection of how the duelists get onto the site. First of all, you go in with a showstopper, then you overwhelm Cavern. The hole in the smoke was what scared me the most.
Yeah.
But thankfully, they were able to, first of all, not get taken out. Second of all, Freak was able to survive the shorty attack, which led them to go even, right, to get another pick off towards heaven, get rid of Noted. And that just kept spiraling things away out of MBU's hands back into the control of NC State. Now, even as dicey as it happened through that, NC State survives with only the 2 players left, which I think economically speaking, the rest of the squad is still kind of suffering here. So for Missouri Baptist, who's been really stringing these rounds together in a row and relatively cleanly too with that, should be seeing I think a pretty decent 9th round victory to give them that 9-3 first half, as if I remember my economic score correctly here. And it looks like it's actually pretty decent, yeah. So NC State still has a really good opportunity to make this an 8-4 first half. But the problem is, right, they don't have the ultimates. They don't have what helped them break through MBU in the first place.
I mean, you got the Blaze Storm, you know, updraft, dump the knives on to Cavern with the operator could work out. But what's interesting here, I'm not seeing a lot of trap wire in action. Maybe the nade we saw broke one of them. The other one positioned towards heaven, which again goes back to this team playing that heavier retake mentality. Especially on a round like this where you have the showstopper, the neural theft, the dimensional drift. You're happy to give up that space. But NCSU, not liking the lack of information here. No confirmation on where these players are. Again, that operator is a big fear point in the back of your mind. And speaking of rotations, noted. They repositioned here at perfect timing here. Unless they go vents to A, which looks pretty weak minus Katashio.
And honestly, at this point, you could just play off the tripwire that's up in heaven and just back away from that. Yeah, here it is, the Blade Storm. It's gonna draw in the jet, but the Aftershock was so close. Freak almost falling to some crazy amounts of utility. They really trying their hardest, but that tripwire is so difficult to get rid of, and then you toss in a metal. Even more annoying, noted, right? The low
30
health
seconds left.
the NC you had is just spam through the smoke and come out with massive gains, massive victories.
down.
Of course, Laver's there with the operator. Finally, they get rid of this clove, but at what cost? Nuthium's holding on by a thread of health. Riot's the only one alive now left standing. But with time running out of their hands, who better to end the first half than the Yoru operator extraordinaire?
Switching sides.
Wow, 9-3 on your map pick, or I guess 3-9 for NCSU on their map pick, I should say. Not what you want to be looking at here. But we mentioned it, this was a good map for both of these teams, and Missouri Baptist, even with the composition change, because remember, Cavern's usually on Tejo, and the fact that they pick up the Yoru, pick up the operator, and are going 18-3 right now is such an insane statement. And clearly, they have top-of-the-line connection. And speaking of connection, Sam, make sure to check out Exit Lag. They ensure better and faster connection from your PC to game servers, eliminating connection issues with a single button press. So take your connection to the next level, especially with our code GGWP, which, if things are trending this way, this might just be GG well played for NCSU. They need this pistol! And Freak with the opening frag may have just delivered it, but they overheat. They get refragged.
Yeah, those are the kind of moments that you might be feeling later on in the rounds. But at least you got rid of a powerhouse player in the form of Cavern. Natashio deals some more damage to Bueno, but you're not watching your back. Generic to be the one to lurk all the way through that. There's tit for tat between these two teams, right? One player goes down, another one's going to suffer the loss. And you've taken out Nuthium, so that means, right, all of the damage is permanent. And No's going to continue to abuse that time and time again. Brilliant headshot from Noted. Now it's time just for the one more player. You may have been seen by the spy cam, but Brids, you're at 35 HP in a dream here, buddy. What do you have for us? With just a classic in hand? Well, Vulcan is going to show you what the power of a ghost can do. MBU slides through the pistol round clean.
I mean, the only shining light there really was the opening frag from Freak, right? And we mentioned it, that gets squashed almost immediately with the refrag with the trade. And again, it goes back to the Sky setting up Freak very, very well in these situations, but beyond that, it was just mid fights. I mean, this lurk was pretty good from Generic, you know, being able to clear that deeply of B main if there was any lurk player potential, but it shows again maybe the leverage of what the double duelist offers as well, right? You can have a rogue raise mid causing mischief like we just saw out of MBU. Look at this, this is a standard eco strat. You want a death ball in a mid, but that fall line just stopped all of it in its tracks.
Okay, all right, Bueno. You're gonna keep the race from satcheling out even further. Nice from Nuthium. They know they had to have done something there before someone else swung through the smoke. And I can't believe it. We might be getting another anti-eco thrifty round. NCSU started off nicely. Vulcan's headshot in through mid. They have just sent things into a tailspin for the squad.
What is going on?
Back up to full HP, Dusty. They're hearing more footsteps. They want even more. Don't overheat here, Cypher, but Dusty. Oh, Nuthium. Are you ready for the players that are coming up behind you, though? Are you ready for Cavern? Oh, it's gotta be the Outlaw, of course.
And I agree, the mid fight got dicey for a second, and I like that we saw the players still pushing through, right? They didn't, they prevented NCSU from getting those weapon upgrades, and Dusty, I mean, they were doing their job. They were 2-6, right? Like, their utility, again, they just never got the opportunity to play off in the best capacity on the defense, but got their kills there. We saw it allowed the Yoru to push even deeper, even though they had all of the ace space, so Spike would have been solidified the plan, even if Cavern got overwhelmed there, but great top off, denies that, like mentioned, thrifty from NCSU. So this is a must-win buy-up, and this bonus, I'm gonna say from MBU, is scary. 2 rifles, 2 bulldogs, and an outlaw against your regen, your light shields, I should say.
Oh my god! Oh my gosh! Wow! Freak really playing with fire, but it's Nuthium, the hero of the moment, to take down 2 players of MBU in through B main. Try to walk in the garage. Gotta watch out. Still, though, we're looking at some more poking happening in heaven. Freak's already there. 47 HP, and Noted always. These collat kills, these kills that they get with that Bueno. Bueno just gets away with it for free. Don't look behind you. You got to clear that corner. Otherwise, an Omen's going to take you all down. This is vital for NC State, right? You deny the bonus. You get through with most of your players intact. And you still have a fighting chance.
I can imagine the panic there in the columns after you don't clear behind you, like the Ray's satcheling out and then the frag doesn't get in your way. But this was a nice tag team-esque nature. I liked the follow paranoia from Bueno. And here's that moment that we were laughing at, right? Like, you don't have your duelists back there, the refrags, and to be honest, that felt around after it felt a little scrappy from MBU. It feels like, you know, you're feeling the pressure to close things out since it's 11-4. Just want to get it over and done with. Had to decide your pick, but for now, Eco reset here. MBU, Freak taking the advantage of it with the Outlaw.
Again, it's this Freak Nuthium combo that's been so deadly to this MBU squad. Now Freak, you're abusing the Outlaw, you're abusing the lower buy of MBU, and you're really throwing it in their face. Now the sound of the final two players, Freak. Okay, we'll just take a look at each other, you know. I had to look into each other's eyes, though, before... just get that confidence boost.
And that Vandal, that hero Vandal on the side of MBU was like the death Vandal. You picked it up and you were immediately killed. Every player, and they were just chasing after it, right? Trying to reclaim it, pull it into a hopeful kill, but that means the Outlaw got to pick it up. That means the flank from Briette's got to come through. 11-5, NCSU, road to recovery. But again, only 2 strikes here left on the board. The rifle round, the ult round starting to charge up as well for Missouri Baptist. But again, this was Eco. Not much to break down there and beyond again. Really great coordination between Nuthium and Freak.
One enemy remaining.
Sheesh. You know, a lot of looks of the different types of sniper rifles, right? The Outlaw, the Operator making appearances in massive ways. Finally, though, Missouri Baptist getting closer to the full buy. Not quite yet. Notice the one is going to be noticeably left behind, being the only one using the Sheriff. Now we kind of are on even footing between these two teams and see how Missouri Baptist is going to dissect this attack. It's a full squad, though. Everyone is here. Paint Shell is going to eliminate the first step, but one way going to make things difficult until Noted just lands the first one, and the Brilliants jump down to the ground below, and just walking right into the Lion's Den. Trying to go for another attack here. I'm Bueno. Is even the numbers back out? Well, close enough anyways. This is 2-3. And it's back up to full HP. Over on the other side, Nuthium peeking out for a second. Once the execution sentence from Polkin may have just put the nail in the coffin against NC State. Missouri Baptist. Confident, comprised, and composed. Bueno, whenever they can, maybe to manipulate some bullets out and away. But look at this. You have one player on the high ground in heaven. And then the first shot there, Noted, going to bring themselves back up to life.
Might as well. I mean, the timer itself will eat away any chance from Bueno getting the defuse. Paranoia lands. Bueno running out of bullets, running out of HP, runs out of time. Decides to just try and salvage the weapon here because, like we mentioned, it will be map point for Missouri Baptist. Oh, maybe? Oh, the bait! Why do you have your knife out? Oh,
wait, let's go. Okay, we're getting goofy with it now.
I mean, if it works, it works. The economy wasn't like squared away from Missouri Baptist, right? Like, look, 250, 150, 100, 0, 850. Like, before this round's over, right? I mean, winning will get you that win bonus. I think they'll still have a bye, but when you needed to win 7 in a row to get to overtime at this point, I mean, an ace just like that, the laughs, the confidence, the mental coming up, can definitely be something that turns around the game. And something else that can turn around the game is a timeout. I'm assuming it's NC State's, but it also could be Missouri Baptist after you just got aced. Like,
it's the same time, right? It's, in split, Freak did it first. Now Bueno had to get their own ace with a knife. You don't get to see that very often, Zobi.
No, I mean,
see
that
crazy
was
shenanigans like that. Yeah, it was kind of funny, you know, a fun way to be able to bring yourselves onto match point if you're Missouri Baptist, but it's thinking about those kind of shenanigans, right? Those kind of let's have fun moments. I'm not going to say it's going to cause on the map, right? Obviously, but it's a little things in the back of your mind that NC State going into maybe some of the later maps, right? If they are able to potentially try and abuse some of the shenanigans, who knows?
Well, Last time it was a very close round, I believe, following their timeout. If you remember right, it went to that B pop where Noted gets the 3-piece and shuts it down, which I think has kind of summed up this game. NCSU, when they try to make those recovery moments, it's heroics. But look at the big change coming out of the timeout, the operator. And I like it because you have the Bladestorm in your back pocket. So we talked about, okay, taking your duelist and one of your star top fragging duelists out of the fight. Well, this isn't going to. And Seekers as well. I think, to me, I would like to see more of a retake mentality with these ultimates in tow, but we'll see. I mean, especially when they have the Rolling Thunder, like, you gotta be playing safety here. Your Rays kind of deep, not gonna be able to find their way out if they get stunned by that Breach ultimate.
Yeah, really making sure they're safe from that. But grab the ultimate orb here, Katashio. Ready to stop some shows, but it's not B. Well, that's gonna be happening. I want to rotate back around. If Cavern especially can get rid of Freak and that operator, a battle of wills that might be happening here very soon. Oh yeah, Freak giving Cavern a taste of their own medicine. The problem is, right, the rest of the squad is still working their way up into heaven. Katashio shoots it in, but yeah, Briat stays alive through that. Noted, the one, of course, always to get that first blood on the site itself. Nates back around. Generic, Cavern, both two duelists gone off the map, but Freak's back over here with the operator. Oh, yes. Clear sight lines on a Noted, and you're going to be shooting your shot onto that.
Spike isn't down. The players are reflooding already from NCSU. They might be able to shut the timer down at this rate. See them trying to force their way back towards default, back towards the site. Hulkin, knifed out, trying to sacrifice themselves just so that the plant could go down, but again, it's this duo. Look, Freak and Nuthium, the ones on site. Briat's nice threat from above as well. And NCSU convert out of their timeout.
That's good stuff, right? You're still holding on. You're still making sure to stay alive. And this is also where, the operator is coming into discussion. Freak getting 2 kills from that. You're getting rid of Noted. You're getting rid of Cavern. And these two players, right, 21 and 16, 19 and 8. They're putting up a masterclass performance. And if you can take away the firepower from MBU, that gives NC State a lot of maneuverability to eke away the wins on these rounds. Especially now looking at the economy of MBU, trying to fight their way onto the site. Let's just run it down.
Well, what a shot off on to the A site. Cypher utility, believe, getting the ping off. First blood found. Weakening the players remaining on site. Great utility, and again, this flood mentality from NCSU usually works, but look who's pushing back. MBU try and fail to do so. Dimensional Drift gives them the info they need. Ooh, but it takes the player out of the fight.
Yeah, and there's nothing Katashio can do there. Once the flood has come, you ain't stopping it. NCSU, it's round by round, bit by bit.
All right.
They're doing it.
All it takes is one for Missouri Baptist, and that's the question mark. You have 2 timeouts. When do you use them? They look like they're scraping the bottom of the barrel, just trying to, again, get through this last round here. And, I mean, this was clean from NCSU. I said I liked, like, the Ultimate's last round for a retake, but they utilized them very well here. And again, it felt like MBU had an idea, and then the execution kind of fell apart there, right? Like, of aggressing into CT there to try and counter a retake. If they do that from the get-go, like, they're, like, in the pre-round, the call is, guys, take site, fight forward, I think it could work. But not as, like, a last-minute ditch effort thought when NCSU's already flooding.
They're seeing they should be seeing a lot off this early Cypher cam that 2 players are here. They heard the dog. They saw a shot from that. Again, it's a 4-stack flood through mid to go into A heaven, where Bueno is going to be picking up on a lot of that noise. Rotate back over around, but they didn't clear through here, so Freak is going to get away with the first shot on the operator to Katashio, not even blinded by the breach utility.
The gamble as well, like, what side of the smoke are they coming out of?
Yeah.
This, I like the call not to go onto site. You know the operator's there. You don't know what else is there. Because again, looking at your composition, you don't have much information utility, right? Like, beyond the Cypher cam, but re-clear out. They hear the Yoru flash in heaven. So the numbers start to draw. They're going to trust in Dusty, actually, to make an opening here. And look who's in their other dimension. What?
Okay. I'm Bueno's gone. Generic was already there looking to see if anyone was going to poke out through heaven. That's diabolical, Freak. You're doing it again and again. These duelists, you're gonna just try and peek out of there. But you're doing it into Noted, blown up by the showstopper. I think a direct hit too. Gonna be seeing them in the next round. Hulkin trying to manipulate things, get the aftershock out, get the spike planted, you down to the final 20 seconds. But NC State's not taking any chances, right? It's all three players here. Don't line yourself up, though. Please, for the goodness gracious. Generic closes it out with a 3K. NC State, it's just 4 more rounds to go before overtime.
And with, again, how kind of, like, distributed the ultimates have been, I'm not sure if there's, like, a grand finale-esque round brewing. Missouri Baptist, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, you're 3 off from the Cloval. Everything else here, sorry, 2 off? Like, I don't know. Maybe, like, right before overtime you'll have all the ults online, but that's if, again, you don't use them. But Freak with the Operator's been insane. This crossfire from Generic, also insane. Like, just the awareness that Braids could be lurking up there. I mean, they're looking coordinated, they're looking clean, and they got 4 more rounds to take us to overtime on their map pick. The buy is good, it's again fragmented here. Noted, I kind of like this move again. You're 2 off from your ult, so you get an orb, you get a kill, or you die, and then ultimate comes online for you to come back and carry on with your business.
It's just all about having to make sure it's there. You get smoke for smoke. It's the entire team of MBU, knowing that they're on the lighter buy, pushing in through mid, looking back towards heaven, but you really don't want to waste any more time. You want to try and overwhelm and flood through them. A paranoid to push them back even further. A swing from Generic, though. Noted has the trade. Bueno's not going to take any more chances, especially with a pain shell flying at their feet. But look who's here on the other side. It's Freak. No way they get away with this. Surely not. Surely not. Now they're holding on to the cover, but they went too slow to go back on with the other side. Noted has the execution. More importantly, MBU has the numbers and the spike planted.
And you have the neural theft here. Have that again, late round info off of your Sky. They're waiting for the neural theft, but look who swung in before. It's Bueno. And noted I mentioned they were so close to the not dead yet, and they are making a count. A lot of chip damage left on the Briets, which will count in the late round. It's 1v3. And of course,
Cavern.
Of course.
I'm done.
Cavern with the final nail in the coffin. Missouri Baptist University, 13-8, North Carolina State University. And on map number 1, Spectacular of Split. That was a crazy, almost comeback, though, from NCSU. It was getting closer and closer, but that's where we're seeing that tempo pace change for MBU, working out so massively in their favor, overwhelm, and just flood through the site as quick as you can.
Yeah, I mean, I think Missouri Baptist, they kind of are what we expected them to come in. A little scrappy, you know, mechanics fueling the success. I mean, Cavern with the Operator was crazy to see. But when they actually like got into the nitty-gritty, they got into the kind of resurgence of NCSU, they did struggle to put the rounds on the board. And, I mean, it's difficult, again, when it's a 9-3 half to make that recovery, like we saw from NCSU. But they definitely put up a good fight. I think they looked like they had more complete team plays. And again, when you're the one being tested, we get to see you make those decisions, make those adjustments out of timeouts as well. So maybe if we do get over to Ascent and you get challenged, we'll get to see those kind of changes out of Missouri Baptist. But looking at that map, I first got a shout out. Freak had 7 first bloods.
Yeah.
So, like, it's not that they were having a hard time, like, again, finding openings. It was what came after.
Yeah, everything that came after, it was just being able from MBU, and that's one of the calling signs of a great team, right, is still being able to recover even when you're that player down, and the calling to make that happen. And it's really tough, especially when you look at how Noted was playing, how Cavern was playing. I mean, Noted is at 24-20. A big reason, I think, why we're also seeing this player pretty much occupy only the Clove, because even in instances, right, where they bring themselves back from the dead, they're still relaying so much information. We especially saw that in the final round where they're doing some chip damage or doing something just to make sure that they give their team and their squad the leg up. But Zobi, right? It's map number 1 already dealt and dusted with 13-8 going in favor of MBU, Missouri Baptist University. But there is still a second map that they need to win to close out this series 2-0 for themselves. It's also a chance for North Carolina State Red to be able to bring us to that map number 3 of Lotus. We're going to go to a short break, but don't go anywhere because you do not want to miss what happens on Ascent. Welcome back, everyone, to the 2025 CVAL Championship between Missouri Baptist University and North Carolina State Red, where MBU was able to take map number 1 of Split 13-8, but now we set our sights on to our second map, Zobi, of Ascent, where MBU, they're able to closes out the series.
And I know we were having a little discussion. We're like, do we think Missouri Baptist will be running their trademarked Ascent composition? Which I was saying, I don't know. Noted on the stage, they had their Diamond Sub Roger on the Brim, Cavern on the Sova, Katashi on the Killjoy, and then Polkin on the KO. I think if things were to change, my guess is that it's going to be... Right, whenever we got Nuthium back, Nuthium's definitely your Sova player. So yes. I expect Cavern to be then having to find a role, and I don't expect it to be a Brimstone that they play. So I'm expecting, them to be another duelist pick. So there's no way they get no duelist. I'm sorry.
Right, but this is the great part about MBU Zobies. It's just all up in the air. What's going to happen? What's going to go on? We know at the very least there's going to be a Clove, right? Nota's going to be on that Clove. I don't think there's going to be any ifs, ands, or buts, and Ascent does lend itself decently well to the Clove. But everything else beyond that, unless it's a possibility, right? We could see that double Sentinel, the double Initiator, and the Brimstone of all things. It's there. But who knows what could happen. Meanwhile, on the other side for NC State, they run a pretty standard-ish Ascent, where you're taking out the Jet for the Yoru and you're taking out the KJ for the Vice.
Yeah, it definitely feels very, very Numat-esque, right? You still have the Yoru, which I think is great for, most Sentinel picks. I mean, I don't think you're going to be able to use that to get over a Sage wall. If we do get to see that come into fruition, but... Aside from that, I'm a kind of a doubter for a solo Yoru, so Generic will definitely have to put in the work, I think, to prove it to me. I'm nervous, though, because Freak is, usually this insane player as well in the Duelist. We just saw it. So them being on, a supportive role like a KO is also kind of off-putting, which they are, in fact, going with their standard composition. And Missouri Baptist already off to a start, we said, which was noted, going in for the Clove. So I don't think we're going to see that Sage pick. Polkin, on the Jet, so we are no Duelist. This looks more traditional. This looks more traditional.
Yeah, okay. All right. We're not going anything too crazy here. Katashio. It's going to be our Sova player. But the big question is Yoru. Okay, Cavern. It's again the double duelist back in favor for Missouri Baptist. It makes sense though, right, Zobi? They're the ones starting off on attack after the masterclass performance that we had, but it's these role swaps that we have between Missouri Baptist, right? Again, we were talking about how everyone just plays duelist on this squad.
Yeah. I talked about how they were passing the duelist, right? Katashio did a great job over on that race, but I said it, they've played, Vice, they've played Breach, and so it's no kind of surprise to me that they're on the Sova here. Again, this is a map that everyone knows how to play, most agent roles. Dusty, I said, was your Killjoy extraordinaire on this team. When they have a sub stepping in Rogers, not the KJ fans, they typically go, a Vice or a Cypher, so this looks good as well. Polkin, I think, is gonna be the one that I'm looking forward to, right? The Jet player, so we know Katashi maybe just wasn't a tried and true Jet, so looking forward to seeing them, away from that support role of the Breach that we saw here on Ascent.
I can only imagine the operator shenanigans. Cavern, Polkin is going to be both of them. assist. But what we do know is that it's MBU on the attack, NCSU starting off on the defense.
Wow.
And oh my god, Vulcan. Head ripped clean off their shoulders. And Nuthium's going to continue the streak rolling for NCSU, getting rid of Noted. They're down to barely any HP themselves, but that's a good start for NC State.
Yeah, mid-fight off rip on pistol.
But
Kind of crazy.
Time to jump.
And crazier is, yeah, Generic already in spawn here. Nuthium. Trying to wait for opportune timing. Again, being slow HP, don't want to take any solo engagements. Killjoy here could be a good threat if they don't get the timing off,
Scanning
right?
ahead.
Got a chip on him, Dusty.
wait, hold on a second. The thing is for Dusty, right? They go for the wide swing, but Generic has the tracking headshot. Put Dusty down to the ground. There's just 2 players left for Missouri Baptist.
Revealing area.
Tashio and Cavern. But look at all the players left standing on the side of NC State. Bueno, Generic, Nuthium, Breets. Not gonna be good tides here. First of the Paranoias go out. Gotta take the swing here. Cavern can't play safe inside a boathouse.
Is it an eye for him?
Katashio couldn't land the final killing blow on a Nuthium. Or rather, I'm Bueno. That's gonna be Nuthium to bring NC State first pistol round of Ascent.
Great turnaround after you looked at a 9-3 half on your map pick. Get the pistol under your belt. Again, it kind of went to my idea about how, okay, MBU's a little scrappy. Going for mid-fight like this on a pistol round. A little crazy, nonetheless. But, again, it was clean that CSU. We mentioned how they have clean openings and then fall apart in the late stages of the round. They took this pretty much together, right? Trio coming downstairs. Not, you know, falling to any of the antics of the Yoru Cavern clone. And they walk away with the round. So now it's MBU's turn to deathball it up into the A site on an eco. And it looks like we were going to get an attempted challenge, but I like the idea not to donate a stinger to the cause.
Yeah, don't leave anything behind. Vulcan's gonna be left alone for anyone to peek out of A main, but kind of an awkward position. They're gonna hang out and whine. It's gonna be a fast rotate for the rest of the players. But again, you're just depositing individuals across the ways, across the map. Yikes! And the headshot was there from Freak. It just wasn't the reaction time to land the killing blow. Get them out of there. They still get to walk away with their head intact. Right now, they're just trying to draw as much utility as they can, right? The thorns are going to be used. They hear a lot of noise happening in one direction. The knife is going to suppress down any utility from MBU, but that was never the plan to take your fight here. It's always going to end back over on A, but the sheer wall's going to come up and a brilliant Arc Rose blind. Vulcan could do nothing.